Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. Another day on Capitol Hill as President-elect Donald Trump's picks for key and powerful positions face some pretty rocky roads to confirmation hearings. So perhaps the rockiest road belongs to Pete Hegseth, facing numerous allegations and revelations by today. That, plus two of Donald Trump's nominees presenting a plan to slash the size of the federal government. So let's go live to our nation's capital in Torian Small. Torian, so let's start with Pete Hegseth. He says he has the support of the president-elect, but does he? Because we're hearing of a possible people waiting in the wings, if you will.
Yeah, a number of names are up for consideration as a replacement, though the president is still behind Hegseth. That is according to Hegseth. He said he talked to him this week and said he wants him to continue to stay in this fight. And quite a fight it has been for the Fox News host. He has been seeing controversy after controversy really stymie his pathway to that confirmation, while he is picking up some support, including from Senator-elect Jim Bakes of Indiana. Shortly after his one-on-one meeting, he said that he believes Hegseth won't back down when it comes to foreign adversaries, when it comes to the media, and when it comes to bureaucracy. Still, though, there are quite a bit of reservations among the rest of the conference, including from Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. She has been very non-committal about whether or not she would support this confirmation, but she did say she is willing to see him out through to a nomination hearing, although it's still unlikely that he has received the support needed to reach that point. But we are still waiting to see.
Yeah, right. And the nation's waiting as well. You know, Torian, you can't not see similarities in the journeys of Pete Hegseth and Matt Gaetz, who also faced allegation and scandal on his way to confirmation. You have news about that ethics committee report on Matt Gaetz?
Yeah, that panel was meeting to determine whether or not to release this report. This would be the second time they will convene to figure out whether or not they should release the details of this ethics investigations into him, into some pretty serious allegations. Previously, they were deadlocked, and it pretty much was in line with the Republican House Speaker, who said that he does not want to see this be made public because it would break precedent. Typically, once a lawmaker steps down, that panel loses jurisdiction over them. There is nothing, though, forbidding them from releasing the findings from their investigation. They'll have to decide whether or not this will be a moment to break that tradition and release it based on what they have found, though it does not appear that there is a lot of Republican support for that move. There are Democrats, though, pushing for this to happen either through the panel or through a forced vote. There is a senator or a Republican or representative from Illinois who's looking to force a floor vote on that to happen. Still, though, it doesn't appear that the votes will be there for that released report to happen.
Torian, I've also got to ask you about that fiery exchange that everybody is talking about on Capitol Hill today during a hearing on the security failures that led to the assassination attempt of then candidate, now President-elect Donald Trump. What you're about to hear for our viewers is an exchange between a Republican Congressman, Pat Fallon of the state of Texas, and acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe. Let's watch this and talk about it on the other side.
View. And that is the day where we remember the more than 3,000 people that have died on 9/11. I actually responded to Ground Zero. I was there going through the ashes of the World Trade Center. I was there at Fresh Kills.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you if you were the special agent in charge.
To show respect
you were not.
For a Secret Service member that died on 9/11.
Oh, that you're trying to be.
Do not invoke 9/11 for political purposes.
Oh, I'm not. I'm invoking this.
You are, sir.
Gentlemen,
and you are out of line.
I would like to ask him a question, please.
You are out of line, Congressman.
Don't try to bully me. I am an elected member of Congress, and I'm asking you a serious question, and you are playing politics.
I am a public servant who has served this nation, and
you won't answer the question.
On our day, on our country's darkest day.
Mr. Committee will come to order.
Committee will come to order.
I'm asking you serious questions for the American people, and they're very simple. They're not trick questions. Were you the special agent in charge that day?
No, I wasn't. I was there representing the United States Secret Service, sir.
Mr. Fallon, your time's expired.
Did not affect protective operations.
You know why you were there? Because you wanted to be visible, because you are auditioning for this job.
I was there to pay respect for a fallen member of this agency.
You endangered President Biden's life, Vice President Harris's life, because you put those agents out of position.
Mr.
Did you have a radio with you?
Mr. Fallon, your time has expired.
I did, sir, and you are out of line.
All right, so Torian, we know you talk to lawmakers all the time on Capitol Hill. One person said you're playing politics with 9/11. The other one saying these are legitimate questions for that acting Secret Service director. How is this landing with lawmakers on the Hill?
Yeah, it's certainly not a good look. That congressman there implying that the acting Secret Service director ultimately put the other agents at risk by going out of formation to be essentially a part of a photo op for that memorial service. That agent, obviously, that acting director, obviously being pretty upset by this. This, though, is a precursor to the final report this panel is expected to release. If anything, we could learn from the interim report that it put out in October. That was a pretty public dressing down of the agency, detailing some pretty critical flaws in security, the security apparatus of the Secret Service when it came to the July 13th assassination attempt on Trump. From that, we know, though, that there are recommendations, including some changes in protocols that have been implemented in the agency. That includes more agents, also this aviation approach to surveilling these venues for campaign events through drones, for example. But this acting director today, though, ultimately wanted to underscore that the agency is taking accountability for the actions that happened during the first assassination attempt. They're learning from it, and they're open to more suggestions moving forward.
Torian Small, thank you so much. The hot ticket of the day in politics is to be on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for being on top of all of these stories. Let's go back to New York City and the search for the gunman who shot and killed the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, Brian Thompson. Now, you got to see this. These are the words written on the bullets. Another headline, NYPD getting a search warrant for a youth hostel where they believe the suspect stayed. Now, this is a twist, what you're looking at, and what sounds more like a movie, but CBS News confirms that police found these shell casings belonging to the bullets that killed Mr. Thompson. The words on your screen were also on those casings. Deny, defend, depose, written on the casings. Now, police are putting together a timeline, and this map brings that timeline to life on our monitor. So look closely. 6:39 a.m. Tuesday, the gunman in position, waiting for his victim outside New York City's Midtown Hilton. 5 minutes later, Thompson walks into that hotel, then the shooting, then the getaway. That entire attack from arrival to escape happening in less than 9 minutes. By 6:48, the shooter on an e-bike, Center Drive, Central Park. Not long after, the murderer got away. Doctors pronounced Mr. Thompson dead at 7:10 a.m. Now think about it. All of this happened, making international news in just 30 minutes. And look at this. This is surveillance video capturing the moment of that murder. The shooter out from behind a parked car, the gun pointed there. We, of course, freeze that video before Mr. Thompson falls. He's shot in the back. A fatal shot. That 50-year-old CEO stopped short of planning his appearance at an investor meeting. Let's go live right now to CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano. She's just outside that Midtown Hilton location. Lilia, police just released photos of the suspect's face, no mask on, for the first time. We're also hearing about a search warrant. Tell us what you know at this hour.
Well, Reed, those photos are remarkably clear. I mean, the first thing you think of when you look at those photos is, if that's somebody I know, I would absolutely recognize them. That's what a lot of people are talking about on social media. It's also the kind of image that allows for facial recognition technology to spot that person and, match it to any other records that there might be out there using his biometric data, or at least, his facial features. The other part is the search warrant. Here's what we know. We know that there is a youth hostel where the nightly range goes anywhere from $80 to $300 a night. Youth hostels, I'm not sure about this one in particular, but are places where you can pay cash, where people stay, multiple people in one room. And in this hostel in the Upper West Side, effectively New York Police, NYPD, executed a search warrant. There were many people staying there. We have teams over there trying to talk to folks and see what they know and if anybody got to know this person. The images that we showed, the clear images without any mask or any covering to the face that you see, are from the hostel. Those are not from the Starbucks. Those are not from the scene of the crime. They're from the hostel, from the youth hostel. And so Police are asking for people for information. They're also, as you said, canvassing the videos from all of the surveillance cameras that could have captured him from here to the last image that they have of him. And so it's been more than 24 hours, but hopes are high that using technology and the task force, they'll be able to catch this person.
CBS News correspondent Lilith Luciano, so great to have you on CBS News 24/7. Thank you for that. We're going to dig a little deeper now and go to CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman in New York. Ricky, you know the NYPD, and I've got to ask you about the words that were written on those shell casings. Deny, defend, depose. Listen, if that doesn't speak to motive, I don't know what does. But it also makes me think that this killer knows that police will figure out his identity. What's your read on that?
Well, it certainly does speak to motive. There can be no doubt about it, especially if you compare those words to the book that was published in 2010 about insurance companies that deny claims. And that book was called Delay, Deny, Defend. So you have one switch of one word, but two of the other words. You also have to remember that there have been protests at the headquarters in Minnesota by people who feel that UnitedHealthcare has not been good to them about their claims and has denied coverage. So is he one of those people? Does he want to be caught? Does he want to go down in infamy? That is always a possibility. Or is he one of those people who likes to tease the police and say, catch me if you can? The NYPD does not like to be teased, and the NYPD, with all of the faith that I have in them, in addition to the fact that their new commissioner, Jessica Tisch, when she was there in an earlier capacity, she was head of technology. So not only does she understand how it works, she's at the forefront of technology, and facial recognition is one of her things. So I do think that this crime is going to be solved, plus the fact at the moment, you have, Reed, a modest reward. Certainly, UnitedHealthcare could come up with a big reward if they don't get sufficient tips to the police very soon. And there always are people who might just come forward because they're good citizens, but there are some people who will come forward because they know that there's money at the end of their coming forward.
Right, and we're starting to see as you and I talked about yesterday, the surveillance video and especially that up-close shot of him without his mask. What are police going to look for in that mask and then also in the information left behind at the Starbucks that figures into this story?
Well, they're looking for DNA. One of the things we know actually from watching a fictional television series that deal a great deal with forensics, let alone true crime documentaries that we see presented on cable, presented on networks, also presented on places like Paramount Plus, where you can look through facial recognition and it can go spinning through jillions of faces until they find a match. In addition to that, we're looking at DNA. If they can find DNA on those shell casings, on those bullets, inside the room, let alone if they locate the mask, we know they've picked up a cell phone. If it is his cell phone, they have all kinds of leads here. People who say, well, they haven't found him in 24 hours, so he must just be gone. It doesn't matter if he's gone. They will find him.
Ricky Kleeman, a family planning a funeral, and a fascinating conversation once again here on CBS News 24/7. Thank you so much for your insight and your expertise.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back, we're talking about a tragedy that played out in a Northern California elementary school room. 2 children fighting for their lives in extremely critical condition after a double shooting that ended with the suicide of the shooter. Why some in that Northern California town say this particular school was targeted because of its religious affiliation. We're back after the break. Video to our monitors tells the tragic and horrifying story of 2 kindergartners shot in their Northern California classrooms. Those children, right now as we speak, in critical condition after a man went in, opened fire, then killed himself on their playground. Now, here's what we know so far. The two students are boys ages 5 and 6. The violence happened at a small religious school in the community of Palermo, about an hour north of Sacramento. Police report that shooter died from that self-inflicted gunshot wound not far from these playground instruments you see right there. CBS News Sacramento's Sakura Gray reports on the shock resonating within this small community.
2 elementary school students in critical condition and the suspected gunman dead following a school shooting at Feather River Adventist School in Northern California. Now, this is a small school about 60 miles north of Sacramento in Oroville with an enrollment of about 35 students. And 2 of those students, ages 5 and 6 years old, are fighting for their lives in the hospital today, according to the Butte County Sheriff's Office. Now, the big question is, who was the gunman and what was his motive for doing this? Well, the gunman arrived on campus, met with administrators about potentially enrolling a family member in this school. It was after that meeting that the gunman opened fire and then left 2 of those students critically injured before turning the gun on himself and taking his own life. The Butte County Sheriff's Office says they have identified this individual. They do know his name. However, they're not sharing that information with the public just yet, as this FBI-assisted investigation is currently interviewing people who may have been associated with this individual. Lastly, the Butte County Sheriff's Office is putting the word out to schools and churches across California that are Seventh-day Adventists, because they have reason to believe that this shooter may have targeted this school because of their religious affiliation. As far as the next steps here, the FBI, Butte County Sheriff's Office are combing through evidence and trying to answer the question of why. Why did this happen? Later today, this afternoon, the Butte County Sheriff will share the latest updates in a press conference.
Sakura Gray reporting there. To Washington now, Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk tapped to head the President-elect Donald Trump's new Department of Government Efficiency. And there they are, arriving on Capitol Hill today. So let's bring in CBS News political reporter Jake Rosen live in West Palm Beach, Florida. Jake, these titans say they can squeeze more juice out of the lemon that they say is the spending of the federal government. What's their mission with lawmakers in specific today?
Well, really, it's to meet with sympathetic Republican senators on Capitol Hill to discuss what their plan is. And I think we have to remember to put in context what this DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency Committee, really is, which is kind of a blue ribbon organization that they can kind of formulate outside of the official part of the government, make recommendations to Donald Trump, although we know obviously that Elon Musk has a direct line to Donald Trump, so his recommendations wouldn't necessarily need to go clearly through that committee. You could probably just call Trump up and talk about it, right? But it's to talk with these senators who have to oversee a federal budget, see where they can cut things. They've gotten a little bit of sympathy from Democrats on cutting government waste, but it really seems like their agenda on Capitol Hill is to meet with senators to go after where they see as wasteful spending that has been boosted by the Biden administration over the last 4 years.
We also know, Jake, that President-elect Donald Trump will not be where you are in West Palm Beach. He's headed back to his home state of New York. What's his mission there?
Yep, and he is heading on over the weekend to Paris to go attend, as he put it on Monday, the grand reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral in downtown Paris. He's going to go there, but before he does that, he's going to go to a Fox News event tonight, which is called a Patriot Award Gala. He's going to go speak there. He was nominated as and won their Patriot of the Year award. Interestingly enough, Sean Hannity will be hosting that. It was originally set to be featuring Pete Hegseth, who, as we know, has been embattled in these meetings and confrontations on Capitol Hill over his political future as potential Department of Defense leader.
Yeah, Jake, what's our read on that trip to Paris and the Notre Dame? He's going to be standing shoulder to shoulder with many world leaders there inside the now restored Notre Dame after the fire. Is this seen by other world leaders as being his first official, unofficial, official visit as the president-elect?
Well, and it will be, because he is going, in addition to not just him and the people around him who will be traveling to Paris for this, assuming he'll be meeting with Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, as their government faces its own uncertainty at the moment. But he's also going to be there as Joe Biden. First Lady attends the event on behalf of the current administration. So again, one of those split screen moments where Joe Biden not going to be there, Donald Trump taking the spotlight from them as he's continued to do. But we know that since the election and since he won and these transition efforts have started, he's hosted world leaders down here, including Justin Trudeau of Canada. And really, the couple big things are Trump's constant threats of tariffs over not just North American allies, but European and Asian allies and countries, but also the importance of NATO and Trump's hesitation and seems to be, pushing forward and then pulling back on what he wants NATO to be under his leadership and his administration, which is holding European countries, including France, Germany, England, and really just the entire area of Europe, right, to pay their fair share in support of Ukraine, something that Donald Trump claims to have done, did a little bit of in his first administration, and wants to see that go through because really there is this isolationist wing of the party, including people like J.D. Vance, Pete Hegseth, who really want Ukraine to have to finish this war and fight on their own. It'll be a really critical thing as we get into an actual Trump administration of how and if the Trump administration really pushes to fund more aid to Ukraine or whether they back out completely.
Jake Rosen, CBS News politics reporter in a balmy West Palm Beach, Florida. Now we're going to change the temperature. Watch this. If you listen closely enough, you can hear somebody shivering there in that very cold picture. Fierce winds and whiteout conditions slamming Pennsylvania. A lot of people living in Erie, north of Pittsburgh, say the wind is blowing so hard you can barely open your eyes, and that's if you even want to go out to open your eyes. Jess, it's wintertime.
It is a lot colder up there compared to some of our friends off into the West Coast, so let's talk about it. The strong storm system that continues to impact many communities, anywhere from Ohio over into New York, Pennsylvania. You just saw heavy snow is continuing to fall today, as well as these gusty winds. They're hurricane-force winds, anywhere up to around 60 miles per hour throughout the Northeast. Now, another thing to mention too, the National Weather Service is on top of it, issuing lake effect snow warnings for all of our friends in northern portions of Ohio, Pennsylvania, and western portions of New York. You see that tan color right there? That's a wind advisory, a high wind advisory that will remain in effect into the overnight hours tonight. So let's dive into what's happening for us. This strong storm system called the Alberta Clipper continues to impact millions of Americans with heavy snow and rain into the evening hours tonight and early morning hours tomorrow. Throughout the past 12 hours, we've seen impressive amounts of snowfall widespread throughout upstate New York, and we're expected to add about an additional 20 as we head into this weekend. 20 inches right there. Now, these gusty winds, of course, cause a lot of issues when it comes to downed trees and power outages on top of that heavy snow that's starting to really pack in. Just within the past 24 hours, we've seen close to around 10 inches in parts of New York and Wisconsin. Pennsylvania seeing a very similar number too. Now, as we head into our weekend forecast, we have to keep in mind we've been seeing this snowstorm widespread throughout the Northeast throughout the past week, and we're not done with it just yet. Now the big concern comes with the winds on top of that heavy snow too. So the winter storm warning remains in effect into this weekend, as well as high wind warnings. So let's talk about the winds real fast. Mostly coming in from the north, anywhere up to around 30 to 40 miles per hour just right now in areas like Williamsport and New York City. We'll watch those winds stay strong into the early morning hours tomorrow and strengthen at times throughout the afternoon hours tomorrow, especially closer to Maine. I'll have more on that coming up in a bit, Reed, but what a mess it really is right now in the Northeast.
Might motivate you to want to leave planet Earth. I have an assignment for you and a request. Start preparing a forecast for Mars.
Okay.
Here's why. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the future of space travel by leaders in the United States. What a story this is. Stay with us. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. In the aftermath of 2023's deadly beating of Tyree Nichols, the Department of Justice conducted an investigation against the Memphis Police Department and now released these results. They found Memphis PD violated the rights of Black Americans. So here are details. The DOJ launched their investigation 6 months after Nichols' death. They found that the Memphis Police Department indeed used excessive force and discrimination to detain people. That includes unlawful traffic stops and invasive searches of people and their cars. U.S. Assistant Attorney General Kirsten Clark of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division said the city and police department needs to correct these issues. She spoke on this matter this morning.
Based on this investigation, we found that the police in Memphis use excessive force, that they stop, search, and arrest people unlawfully, that their policies have a discriminatory effect on Black people, and that they discriminate against people with behavioral health disabilities. Furthermore, we are also concerned that MPD officers unnecessarily escalate encounters with some of the most vulnerable members of this community, its children.
Kristen Clark there. The Department of Justice emphasizes that the case of Tyre Nichols is just one of multiple examples that they looked at when investigating Memphis PD. In fact, just a moment ago, the mayor of Memphis responded to those findings.
So before I say anything else, let me be clear that I believe that even one incident of mistreatment by the police is one too many. The report the DOJ released last night, it's going to be difficult to read. Some of the types of incidents that are described are simply not acceptable, and our hearts go out to every person who has been impacted by those actions.
Memphis Mayor Paul Young speaking there. The DOJ report, by the way, requests that the city of Memphis negotiate an agreement that would put into place an independent monitor to oversee police and emergency services. Well, the Centers for Disease Control sounding the alarm about a drug 100 times stronger than deadly fentanyl. This warning is about a synthetic opioid called carfentanil. The CDC says the number of overdose deaths linked to this carfentanil rose to 238 people just in the first half of 2024 in the United States. Now, if that number isn't weighty enough to get your attention, think about this. That marks a 720% increase compared to just the year before. People in 37 U.S. states affected. Carfentanil. You'll hear a lot more about that in the weeks and months ahead. Well, a new survey reveals bee colonies taking a major hit across the country. The annual U.S. beekeeping survey indicated the world lost more bee colonies in 2024 than any year other than 2011. American beekeepers lost more than half of their bee colonies this year. That's a number 14% higher than the average from the last decade. Scientists say bee populations struggle against threats from parasites, pesticides, and climate change. When we come back, we will go back to Capitol Hill. Pete Hegseth, President-elect Donald Trump's pick to run a major department in these United States, digging in his heels, he is saying, on a media tour and also a tour of Congress. He's not giving up. More on that nomination straight ahead. Let's get back to news coming out of Capitol Hill. President-elect Donald Trump's picks for powerful and very key positions facing rocky roads to confirmation hearings. Perhaps the rockiest road belongs to Pete Hegseth, facing numerous allegations and revelations. So he's been meeting with lawmakers all morning. And when he was asked if he thinks he has their support, here is what he had to say. Listen.
How was your meeting with Senator Joni Ernst yesterday?
Productive meeting. Excellent. What did President-elect Trump tell you, Mr. Hegseth? He's behind us all the way. Spoke to him this morning.
Did you have the votes yet confirmed?
That's why we're here to meet with the senators. It's been a wonderful process. There's an incredible amount of knowledge in the U.S. Senate, in the Senate Armed Services Committee, men and women who have studied these issues, have invested their lives in it, and as someone who's hoping to earn their support as the nominee for Secretary of Defense, I welcome that knowledge. I welcome that advice, and that's why we're here in all these meetings.
So let's bring in Politico congressional reporter Nicholas Wu. Nicholas, nice to have you on CBS News 24/7. Your reaction to what we just heard from Hegseth, does he have the votes?
Well, it really remains to be seen whether he has the votes or not. As we've seen, his nomination is hanging by a thread, in particular with Republican women senators holding key to his confirmation. One key voice there is Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa, who's emerged as a key voice on defense issues and expressed some hesitancy about his nomination in the wake of all of these damaging revelations that have come out about alleged misconduct. And so it remains to be seen in the coming days whether Trump keeps Hegseth's nomination in or not.
So if he doesn't have the votes, there's a lot of reporting out there that the names being floated are Ron DeSantis, Joni Ernst, and Mike Waltz. Who of those contenders would be able to get the support on the Hill from where you're standing?
All three of them could very likely win Senate confirmation. I mean, members of Congress tend to back their own when it comes to nominations. And, we've seen Democrats, for example, express some interest in having an Ernst nomination as defense secretary, which would help put her over the top. And as for Mike Waltz and Ron DeSantis. Those are also the kinds of folks that might be able to win more Republicans over.
All right, Nicholas, you and I are reporters. We like to know things as they happen, so get out your notebook. I'll do the same. Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, they're expected to speak ahead of their meeting with House lawmakers. We understand that they're about to take to a podium, presenting their ideas on President-elect Trump's new Department of Government Efficiency. What do you make of this new department, and what do you think they'll say before they go into those meetings?
Well, they've been pretty tight-lipped on what exactly their plans are heading into these meetings. We've seen Elon Musk talk about wanting to get rid of tax credits and reduce government spending. But the real question for this so-called Department of Government Efficiency is whether House and Senate appropriators, who really control the purse strings when it comes to federal spending, will go along with them. And so, as we see, year after year, regardless of party, regardless of presidency, the president will always propose a budget, and then Congress will do its own thing anyway.
All right, and we see that insignia there on that podium belonging to the Speaker of the House, as it says, in front of 3 American flags. We will be waiting and watching to see what they have to say. Right now, it's in preparation mode, so we're going to let you go so you can watch that, and perhaps we can get your reaction another time here on CBS News 24/7. Nicholas Wu, nice to have you. Well, you saw it breaking right here on CBS News 24/7 yesterday, the targeted murder of the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. The gunman, still at this hour, is on the loose, but there's a huge development, and you're looking at it right here, that could speak to motive. Look at these shell casings there. CBS News confirms the bullets fired into Mr. Thompson's back had these 3 words written on the casings: deny, defend, depose. Now, do those words speak to a motive? Investigators sure think so, and they are chasing in that direction. Now, let's look at the scene where those bullets flew. This is surveillance video right here. The gun with a silencer. UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson walking there, and then the fatal shot right in the back. By the way, the gunman continued shooting Mr. Thompson in a leg. From there, he just casually walked off, got on an e-bike, and is seen right here on another surveillance camera headed towards Central Park. We also have new images to our monitor showing the suspect just minutes before yesterday's shooting. This is just before at a Starbucks. Now, 2 things happened here. He paid in cash, and he left what police say is forensic evidence. What is that? Possible DNA, fingerprints, police going after that as well. Now, this also takes us even closer to a look at the suspect. You see that? Mask is off, and he's smiling inside a New York City hostel yesterday. Police also say they found a cell phone in the alleyway near the shooting location outside that Hilton Midtown Hotel where Mr. Thompson was headed for an investor conference. There's also a major business angle to this story. So let's bring in CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, chances are many people who watch us right now have UnitedHealthcare, some 49 million Americans. And aside from wanting to know why this murder happened and the manhunt that's happening, they want to know what happens with the leadership of their insurance company.
Well, that's right, Reed. I mean, so many people interact with UnitedHealthcare in this country. And this is one of those tough things because this is a public company. You have to think about investor reaction. You have to think about customers in addition to this very tragic thing that has happened. So one of the things that the company will be doing is considering who will be replacing Thompson and going forth. The company is also facing reportedly a number of investigations over anti-competitive practices, as well as allegations of insider trading. They're going to be dealing with that. And they're also looking to acquire another company. So you have this thing going on, Reed, but this is always the tough thing when you have a very public company that is publicly traded. There is a business that does need to keep running, and it certainly won't be business as usual, but in some ways it does need to move forward and make sure that it continues to serve those customers and investors.
Right, and your presence on this story showcases that CBS has all angles covered as we continue to watch this investigation. But while we have you, Kelly, I have to ask you about something that I saw on your own social media feed, that reporting that Bitcoin is reaching huge marks, like what, 100,000 mark for the first time ever. Is this a major turnaround, and what's the attribution for that?
Yes, Reed, this is an inflection point in this industry. I would say that I'm a little bit of a crypto nerd. I've covered the space for years. You think back to 2 years ago, Sam Bankman-Fried, who was the founder of FTX, he was in the Bahamas hiding out, and we all wondered if he was going to be extradited back here after orchestrating one of the largest financial frauds in U.S. history. The price of Bitcoin was about 16,000 then. It's at 100,000. And really what's driving that is President-elect Trump and his embracing this industry. The Biden administration, industry leaders tell me, has had very much a chokehold on it in terms of how they've approached regulating it. And a lot of folks are expecting President-elect Trump, with the people that he's nominating for some of these important cabinet positions when it comes to this digital currency, that he's going to be pro-crypto, and they like it.
All right. Well, we also are watching for tomorrow's job report. You're seeing some under-the-hood trends, so to speak.
That's right, Reed. So big jobs report tomorrow. This is going to be critical for the Federal Reserve as they think about whether to cut interest rates again or hold them later this month. One really interesting trend, our online Money Watch team, just a fantastic reporting. They're seeing that the folks who are unemployed for 15 weeks or more and they're struggling, to find a job, that's jumped 20%. And so it really tells this story that you're seeing pullback from companies hiring a bit. And yes, at the top line, we've had a strong labor market, but you are starting to see those folks maybe with very specific skill sets that are struggling to find that next position for a longer number of periods. Reed.
All right, Kelly, thank you so much. We got a little crime reporting out of you and some money reporting, some cash covered. Kelly O'Grady, CBS News Money Watch correspondent. Always great to see you. Top space agency officials now giving the public an update on NASA's Artemis program. So Artemis 2, which is set to go to the moon as early as next year. Artemis 3 would land on the moon as early as September 2026. The ultimate goal is eventually going to Mars. Let's listen in.
It's the pinnacle of new possibilities. It's the most daring, technologically challenging, collaborative, international endeavor that humanity has ever set out to do. We've done extensive testing to understand the risk that our astronauts will have while accomplishing the goals of landing back on the moon, bringing them home safely, and this will be the first time in over a half century. We are planning for Artemis 2 to launch in April of 26, and we're going to do all in our power with our commercial partners to launch earlier. After learning from the Artemis 2 crewed test flight, then we're going to make adjustments that are necessary, and we plan to launch Artemis 3, the first landing on the moon in over a half century. Assuming the SpaceX lander is ready, we plan to launch Artemis 3 in mid-2027.
So you can put that on your calendar right now. Okay, you know who else likes to talk about space, but he's not talking about space today? Elon Musk. He is joining Vivek Ramaswamy. They are on Capitol Hill right now, presenting their ideas to lawmakers on President-elect Donald Trump's new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. And we're waiting their word right now. We understand they will be stepping before this podium to address people wanting to know a lot of things, not the least of which is, what are you doing as non-elected officials but appointed by the president to head up this new committee meeting with lawmakers? So we'll continue watching this. Now, we are also wanting to let you know that when we come back on CBS News 24/7, we're getting some breaking news in the state of California. An earthquake, and a big one at that. Where it is, we're also watching for word of damage. This broadcast originates out of Northern California. I can tell you right here at 855 Battery Street, we didn't feel anything, but earthquake alerts just hit our phones, telling us to duck and cover. So we're watching what that is, what the word means for the people in far Northern California where that quake hit when we come back. All right, CBS News 24/7 has some big breaking news out of the state of California. I want to show you what it's like to live in the state of California where we live right now. We just got our phones go off with emergency alerts. This is what's called a shake alert. Shaking expected. People told to drop, cover, and hold on. So here's your headline. A magnitude 6.6 earthquake hit Humboldt County, California. You're looking at the map right there. It is out in the water, but if you're hearing some of the sounds from Jessica's phone right now, it's because we're also getting an alert that speaks to a tsunami. Tell us what you're saying, Jess.
Right now, exactly what they're reporting. This is intense because we're watching this magnitude earthquake. It was originally 6.0, now reported 6.6. What's happening now in Napa County and just along that California coastline near Eureka, Humboldt County, all throughout that area, a tsunami warning is in effect. And this is what the National Weather Service says right now. I'm reading it from my phone because we're also getting the same alerts. The National Weather Service has issued a tsunami warning with a series of powerful waves and strong currents impacting the coast near us. And they continue to monitor that whole region. We're getting these updates live right now. This was within the past 50 seconds. And we're going to continue to keep a close eye on that. If I could show you where that earthquake just happened, though, right behind me. Magnitude 6.6 just offshore of Humboldt County. Now, this is along the San Andreas fault line, and this is a strong system. Here's where it's at right now. If we could advance this graphic, Billy, I'm going to have my producer just behind me actually pull this up. Billy, I'd really appreciate it if you could show us that. A magnitude 6.6 earthquake just along the coast near Humboldt County has been reported. And as we continue to keep a close eye on this, we're watching the impacts from the tsunami warning that was just reported by the National Weather Service, and more to come as we continue to see more updates. Reed?
Yeah, and we're seeing that we all get shake alerts. This broadcast is originating out of San Francisco, California, which has known devastation from earthquakes in the past. So all of us are always glued to our shake alerts on our phone. But we can tell you right here where we are, which is south of where the quake originated. We can tell you right now in San Francisco, at least in the financial district of San Francisco, we didn't feel anything here in the studio. It may be that this quake had more shaking that really originated up north of us from where we are. But we are now seeing the epicenter of that quake on our phone, and we're seeing that you can see sort of where it hit right off of the coastline. So that may speak to what we understand the reasoning would be for this tsunami alert. What does that mean? That means that the water starts to move and starts to move inland from where the quake originated from. So once again, National Weather Service is saying tsunami warning after a magnitude 6.6 quake hits Humboldt County, California. When we report these things here in San Francisco and Northern California, of course, we watch for these shake alerts. That alert came in, what, Jess, about 4 minutes ago, told us all to take cover. Those alerts give us about 90 seconds to maybe 3 minutes to where we can do what the earthquake alert tells us to do, which is to duck and cover. But we're not seeing any shaking here in our studio lights, Jess.
Located in the Bay Area right now, we're not seeing any of those aftershocks. However, we continue to keep a close eye on Humboldt County. That's the big concern right now. And as you take a look behind me in just a second, you'll see just offshore of Humboldt County. This is well north of the Bay Area in California, closer to Fortuna, Eureka, Trinidad. That's where we're concerned right now when it comes to the tsunami warning. This is a strong system. I mean, magnitude 6.6 reported right now. That just got upgraded from when it originally was reported at a 6.0, and we'll continue to keep a close eye on the impacts. A tsunami warning is in effect right now, and we continue to keep a close eye on those aftershocks, Reed.
All right, CBS News 24/7 will keep an eye on that. Can we go to the seismograph as we bid you farewell for this part of our broadcast? This is some of what people are looking at right now, the seismograph imaging. Once again, a 6.6 quake hitting off the shores of Northern California.